All right, so back in May, OnePlus launched the OnePlus 6, and it's still one of my favorite smartphones I've ever used. Oxygen OS is amazing, it's jam-packed with specs, but now they have a new phone just 5 months later. This is the OnePlus 6T. So the questions you're probably wondering is it actually better? Should I buy it? Well, I've had this phone for about 5 days now, so I don't want to give you a definitive review just yet, but I do want to give you my impressions. So let's focus on what's different. Now, the first and probably most obvious thing about this phone is the in-screen fingerprint reader. And OnePlus says it's the fastest in the industry. They're claiming that it can unlock your phone in 0.34 seconds. And in my testing, I haven't really found that to be the case. Sometimes it's really fast, but sometimes it just kind of takes a while to unlock my phone. Now, comparing this to the Huawei Mate 20, I really find Huawei's to be a lot faster, but OnePlus does say that their fingerprint reader is supposed to learn your finger more over time, so I need to spend a little more time with the phone before I can finally make a conclusion. So now we'll move to the back of the phone, and it looks really similar to the OnePlus 6. The first thing you'll notice is that fingerprint reader is gone, obviously, because they want people to use the in-screen fingerprint reader, but the back of the phone pretty much looks exactly the same. As soon as I took the phone out of the box, I noticed that it was just a little bit thicker than the OnePlus 6. They've also added a little bit of a curve here, which they say is to make it fit better in your hand, but they did increase the battery life by 400 milliamp hours. Now, I didn't think that this would actually help that much, but I'm getting about 8 hours of screen on time in my first couple days of use, which is just totally insane. I don't usually get that on any phone ever, and so I'm probably willing to sacrifice the straightness of the OnePlus 6 for the slight curve if it means much better battery life. Now, the cameras are pretty much in the same position as they were last year, and they're pretty much the same cameras as they were last year too. The biggest changes here are probably in the software side of the camera app. There's a new nightscape mode, which is kind of like night sight on the Pixel. It does a long exposure to kind of brighten up the image in dark areas. And you've got a new portrait lighting mode, which is pretty similar to the one on the iPhone 10. It pretty much puts you in this little box and adds little lights to make you look a little bit better. Now, there are two other big changes here, and the first one, and maybe most obvious, is the removal of that headphone jack. And OnePlus says that they were planning to remove it eventually anyway, and now they just thought it was the right time. But I really think that they should have kept it for at least a couple more generations because Bluetooth really isn't the complete standard yet. Also, they took multiple polls to their user base to ask them if they still wanted the headphone jack, and overwhelmingly, a lot of people said they did. That just doesn't seem like never settled to me. Now, the other change is the Waterdrop Notch, which is noticeably smaller than it was in the OnePlus 6. And the OnePlus 6's notch wasn't really that intrusive as it is, but they've moved the speaker grill into the frame of the phone, so now you've got a much smaller notch that just houses the front-facing camera. I didn't really think this would make that big of a deal, but when I was watching content on YouTube, it was noticeably less obtrusive, so that's really nice to see. So that's pretty much all there is with hardware, besides the power button that's like slightly shifted down a little bit. But most of these changes are in software. The OnePlus 6T is running on Oxygen OS on top of Android 9.0 Pie, and Oxygen OS is still one of my favorite Android skins ever. It's super lightweight, it's really fast, it's really smooth, and they've done a few things like making the gesture animations better so that it's a little more fluid to navigate. And they've also done things like putting app data in RAM so that apps launch a little bit faster. Now, all of these changes are being pushed to the OnePlus 6, so you don't really have to worry about that if you do have a OnePlus 6, but it's really nice to see these incremental changes over time. Now, as far as specs go, you're not really getting that much different from the OnePlus 6. You're still getting that Snapdragon 845, you're still getting 6 to 8 gigabytes of RAM, and this time you've got 128 or 256 gigabytes of storage. Now, you'll notice that they got rid of the 64 gigabyte option, and they have upped the price of the base model by $20, but you are getting twice as much storage, so I think that that's a pretty good trade-off. The other SKUs are pretty much exactly the same price. Now, probably the biggest deal about this phone is that it's coming to T-Mobile and it's fully compatible with Verizon. Now, if you want to buy this phone today, October 29th, you'll be able to go to the T-Mobile pop-up in Times Square if you're in New York City, but otherwise you can pick this up from T-Mobile stores nationwide or on OnePlus.com on November 1st. So now you're probably wondering if you should buy this phone. And ultimately, it's really a trade-off. If you want the headphone jack and a more streamlined, flatter phone, the OnePlus 6 is still really awesome, and I still really love the feel of that phone. But if you want a little bit better battery life, a smaller notch, and that in-screen fingerprint reader, the 6T is still a really good phone, and the fact that it's the same price made me think twice about it. So honestly, I kind of feel like this is like a horizontal option. OnePlus will still be selling the 6 for a little bit longer, not that much longer, so you should probably get it while you can if you really want that headphone jack, but you'll be able to buy the 6T really soon here. So a full review is coming soon. We'll have more stuff in there like extra camera samples and all that stuff. But until then, if you have any questions that I didn't really answer here, drop them down in the comment section below. Do the thing with the bell and all those notifications and whatever. And I will see you in the next video.